Well, welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. I went to my paper this morning that I look at every Monday morning, and the big headline in the Wall Street Journal was, "West rushes to train Kurds." Well, as you know, I've not been too happy with the idea of arming Kurds. And if you go back 2 or 3 weeks, you can see a number of times that I brought up the fact that the Kurds are really quite infiltrated with communist organization. The Kurdish Democrat Party and others all emanate out of Russian beginnings, USSR beginnings, if you will. So arming the Kurds will come back to haunt us somewhere in the future, because we will be arming individuals that up to just a few years ago, even after the so-called collapse of communism, had the hammer and sickle on their flag, the Kurdish Workers' Party and that sort of thing. So it's really a problem. The latest thing that's happened, as we all know, is the videos that have been on television purportedly to show that Americans and English and others have been beheaded with a knife. Now, it's my understanding that the actual beheading has not shown up on these videos, that they black out before any blood is shown. But it brings up a point as to why, when there was beheadings of Christian priests by so-called moderates inside Syria after they'd taken control over certain towns and that sort of thing in Syria, these videos showing them cutting off, gnawing off, not gnawing, but sawing with a knife, a small knife, sawing the heads off of Christian priests, 2 of them that I saw, and it was very bloody. I mean, it was from beginning to end, blood all over the place. Meanwhile, everybody's standing around brandishing their weapons, yelling Allah Akbar. These didn't go viral. These videos were not shown on CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, or any of the rest. But these others were. And they're being used to whip us up into something that I think somewhere down the road, sooner or later, and probably sooner, is going to be harmful to the American people. Now, a number of individuals have said that what they're trying to do is not going to work. What Obama is planning isn't going to work. And so the neocons and the Republicans, it appears, are yelling for more boots on the ground, more aid, and that sort of thing. But the problem is that the Jordanian officials have said that we have been training some of these ISIS fighters. Now, everybody denies it and everything else, but it's true to pattern. We have a problem with these sorts of things. We seem to be able to create our own enemies and train our own enemies and arm our own enemies. And so it's quite logical, based on experience, that probably we have been training ISIS fighters. At least the Jordanians believe so. Another thing is that McCain, of course, is leading the attack in the Senate, calling for more of this, more of that, chastising people that Obama's not going to be able to make this thing work the way it's going. Now, of course, we don't think it's going to work either as far as subjugating what's going on in the Middle East. But it's going to work from the standpoint of building the New World Order. It's still in a state of flux, but it looks as though it's a backdoor, actually, to train these people in Syria, because now we're hearing more about arms in Syria and then to the Kurds, but more in Syria than Iraq in training people. And if we train those moderates supposedly to fight ISIS in Syria, isn't that ultimately going to lead to them overthrowing Assad? I'm not saying Assad's a nice guy, but like everywhere else, it seems that where we go, we change a dictatorial country into a very radical extremist country as far as its leadership is concerned. We have seen McCain, photographs of him getting in and talking to terrorist leaders before they're known as terrorists by the American public. We've seen him in his organizations go into other countries like Egypt. If you go back several weeks, you'll see where I outlined how McCain and these individuals went into Egypt and changed Egypt into a Muslim Brotherhood government. And then after the coup happened, they went in, he and Lindsey Graham went in and demanded democracy be returned, which meant in practical terms restoring the Muslim Brotherhood. And if you go back several weeks, you'll see a whole segment on that. I hold up a whiteboard to show that. What we're seeing is show business being performed on television to get us back into the Middle East on the ground. As one wag has said, I feel like I'm being worked. In other words, he feels as though he's being manipulated by all of these newscasts. Now, it appears, and you can go and see this on television all the time, that the Republicans and the neocons are the punch in the Punch and Judy show of trying to get the Obama administration to get back involved in the Middle East, send more troops back into Syria, maybe even Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. Afghanistan is just on the verge of breaking up. There's a little lull there right now, but they can fester that up into a full-scale civil war at any moment because of the two competing individuals who say they were elected as president. So any number of things can happen over there that can really throw the whole thing from India straight across to the Mediterranean into turmoil. The thing is that we saw Hagel, the Secretary of Defense Hagel, and the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dempsey, state before the Senate that, or maybe it was the House, that the plan that they have will not work. Well, if it's a plan and it won't work, why are they planning it? I mean, no business, no person, no entity would ever plan something that's not going to work. So obviously they do have a plan that they're keeping secret from the American people. And that secret, the dirty little secret, is they're going to be forced by the Republicans to do what they wanted to do all along, and that's to get back involved. The interesting thing, too, is that we're told that the ISIS rebels communicate by cell phone. We are also told, as we've stated before, that they receive millions of dollars a day in oil that they sell to whomever. Now, we know that people in robes and towels around their head don't show up with a bag of money every day to buy this oil. It has to be done by transfer, electronic transfer. So I have two questions and two suggestions. Why not, for instance, send an AWACS aircraft over the area? They can spot all of these communication towers that the cell phones bounce off of. Our guys can go in there and knock out those cell towers. Pretty simple. Yeah, it costs some money, and that's what they're doing anyway. But we don't have to put boots in the ground. We can interdict their lines of communication literally within a short period of time. Seems rather simple to me. Another thing is, if the American people can get hacked and their accounts drained, why can't we go in and hack the ISIS accounts and drain their accounts? At least throw their whole electronic transfer system into disarray. Seems pretty simple to me. The thing is that what bothered me the most, and why I'm even talking about this as much as I am this week, after spending several weeks on it, is because I watched the tail end of Secretary of State Kerry appearing before the Armed Forces Committee of the Senate. And he was railed upon by Senator McCain. You got to do more, you got to do more, you got to do more. Why aren't you doing this and everything else? And McCain's fumbling, Kerry's fumbling around trying to defend what they're not doing. And when McCain gets over and Kerry's ready to leave, he winks at Senator McCain. I'll leave it up to you to decide what that was all about. I know I've made up my mind what it was all about. Until next week, we'll see you then.